My name is Solomon Logan. I am a childcare owner of Logan's Treehouse Childcare in Louisville, Kentucky. We have three locations, licensed for 423 children, and I am a husband and a father of four amazing kiddos, and we do all things childcare around our house.
Amazing. All right, Lisa, we're back. Let's see. Can you
Are
hear?
we?
I'm also a childcare success coach as well with CCSA.
I'm Lisa. I am with Line Leader by Childcare CRM. I've been here about 8 years. And as I introduced myself to Solomon, and I've been on a couple of these webinars this summer, my thing is that I was in the childcare field before I joined the software side. And so the filter, the vision, the focus that my team here at Line Leader is that, we're really looking at how do things work in a center? How do things work for teachers, for directors, for owners? Sure that that is meeting your needs. And Marcia, is it Marcia? I see somebody from California. All right, nice.
Yes.
So Solomon, today we are talking about dun 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 the big topic, staffing. Right? We're talking about staffing, we're talking about turnover, we're talking about things and best practices around staffing. We know from multiple surveys, anybody who does a survey anywhere that has anything to do with childcare, they say, what are your concerns? Staffing is always right up there. So you own childcare centers. Let's talk about
Yes.
what's that look like?
Definitely. As a owner of three child care centers, we've definitely seen the and experienced the challenge of getting quality staff and keeping quality staff. So I definitely understand everyone's pain in that area. But over the past 6 months, we've seen a drastic change, and we just started to do different things in our culture, different things and processes. And one of those was just being consistent with one-on-ones. I met with my directors and I explained the importance of having those consistent one-on-ones with your staff when they come in your building. It's one thing it builds connection, it builds trust. And to be honest, if someone doesn't trust you, they're not going to want to work for you at the end of the day. You have to build that trust amongst your teachers. And we're going to do our one-on-ones, be consistent with it. And we've seen a 23% increase in retaining our teachers just from being consistent with our one-on-ones, not every now and then having one, but consistently having those one-on-ones and checking it off. And it's really helped us, Lisa.
What does it look like? Who is conducting those one-on? Is it you? Are you going to every meeting with people?
So our program directors are doing the one-on-ones. We have guidelines and structures of how we want the one-on-ones conducted. And I do go in and sit in, periodically on those one-on-ones to see how's it going at each center.
I would love to chat a little bit more about, building that strong culture at your childcare center, and maybe Solomon, if there's tips that you have and things that have worked for your center with maybe unique offerings that you have for your staff, or what have you seen that maybe works and doesn't work for keeping your staff
Something
retaining?
that has really worked for us is giving your staff their way does not work. I'm just going to tell you now, it does not work. It hasn't worked for us, but for us, having number one is solving issues promptly. Because in our schools, you can have issues that arise, drama, the chit chat that goes on every now and then. But as a leader, you have to step in and solve those issues promptly. The longer you let them linger, the worse your culture becomes, the less trust your A and B players have in you and your school because they don't feel safe. I remember when I worked in corporate America, and one of the things I did not like was the lack of trust in my leadership that I was underneath. because there was things that were going on in the business that weren't being addressed or corrected, and they just linger, and people, it makes people feel unsafe and insecure about their job. So if anything, I would tell any leader is solve issues promptly. When it arises, get your cool head, get what you're going to talk about, and nip it in the bud. Because the longer it lingers, the worse it really affects your culture in your schools.
Yeah, absolutely. What about like anything as far as like, I like that you talked about having regular one-on-ones. That's something that we do at Line Leader, on a weekly basis, and having performance reviews so that, there's no surprises when these conversations are happening. It's just to keep everybody on the same page. There's nothing that can go wrong from that. But I do want to address some questions in the chat as they were coming up.
Yeah.
Um, we had a recent question. It says a couple of our senior staff are taking advantage of new staff. How would you go about something like that to resolve? And, it seems like having open communication is definitely something that you value at your center.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, other advice that you would add to that?
So at our schools, our memo is our culture is hot. Hot stands for honest, open, and transparent. So at all times, from the day you walk in the door, you know that your leadership team is going to be honest, open, and transparent. And with senior leadership staff like that, who you say are taking advantage of new staff, I would sit down and have a hot conversation with them, an honest, open, and transparent conversation. These are the things that I notice. Um, and here's the resolve that I would like to get to. But don't run from it. And I don't know how long it's been going on, but back to my other point is I would solve it promptly soon, because you don't want to run off those new staff, because whether you know it or not, if it's been going on for a while, they're counting down their days until they leave. They may not tell you, they may not tell your director, but they're counting down their days to get out of your building. So I would definitely have that hot conversation with your senior staff about expectations. And if somewhere along in your core values there's something about respecting all or something of that matter, I would bring that up as well. Use your core values to correct any issues that you're having with your staff.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely important. Lisa, do we have you back?
I don't know. It's Zoom. It keeps kicking me out. That's the second time. I have other applications. If everybody wants to transfer on over to Teams, I'm good there.
Oh my gosh. Well, we do want you here, whether Zoom does or not. We want you here.
I thought maybe it was a secret button you were pushing to kick me out. And like, we don't care anymore.
Absolutely not. We were just chatting through some questions that were popping up in the chat, Lisa, just about, handling issues at your center and addressing concerns head on with staff members. But I would love to see, Lisa, if you want to take us into our next topic, chatting about building stronger retention efforts, how to reduce burnout, and like improving satisfaction at your centers. If you'd like to guide us into our next topic.
I mean, those are all important things, especially the piece about burnout. The one thing I was going to say at the top when I was thinking about what Solomon was saying was that, people act in the news, in the media, they're acting like the staffing crisis is new. There's a staffing crisis here and there's a staffing crisis there. And myself and my friends who are in childcare, we think, well, gosh, we've been in a staffing crisis for 10 years. We know what this is about. And so a lot of the things that we're doing to retain staff, like Solomon said, hit things head on. Let's not, push things under the carpet or pretend like things aren't happening. But retention comes up to really being aware, I think, and being mindful of what's happening. I hope that I'm not repeating anything that you already said there, Solomon, but, preventing burnout by having great culture. And I caution that culture is not just about fun and games. I think a lot of time people think when you have a great culture, it's a lot of fun and you have a ping pong table at your center for staff to use. And I really don't think that's what it's about. I really think it's much, much deeper than that. And it is about a shared mission, and your culture is about, are we getting to the same place together? Solomon, what is your thought on that?
No, that's gold. That's gold. Um, I had that exact sentiment when I first began to hear about your culture and values, thinking, oh, we need to get some balloons and have more games and have more. And once you go through that phase and you realize you're putting all this effort into the pretty things and you're still experiencing staff turnover, your culture's still down, but use your core values to drive your culture. One of our core values is fun. So we do have some fun sprinkled in there, but one of our core values as well is teamwork and respect. So when you're talking down to another staff or gossiping, that goes against our core value. And we use those core values to drive everything that we do, from hiring, firing, promoting, having fun, whatever it is, we use those core values to drive our culture in our schools.
So Solomon, let me ask you about core values, because that can be a little bit of a hurdle for some people. Number one is identifying what they are, right? And
Yeah.
so insight you have into that process. But the second is also about disseminating them, right? We can
Yeah.
have all the core values that we want, but if we don't tell people about them, if we don't talk about them, if we don't live them,
Yes.
kind of for naught. So how did you guys at your locations go about coming up with those core values and making sure they reflected not only your personal philosophies, but kind of, again, everybody on that shared mission?
Yeah, so what we did is we met with our leadership team and brought everyone in. We allowed them to contribute in creating those core values. And then in everything that we do, it's a requirement to staff meeting. We start off with our core values. Um, in any hiring, firing, discipline, core values are expected to be used. For example, say Miss Johnson. She's being promoted for being a great team player. So in that process, the language would be, Miss Johnson, you showed our core values of teamwork and consistency, and we want to give you this. So just in everything that we do, we established it at first, like you said, Lisa, awareness, making everyone aware of what our core values are. And then it's just a conscious effort of always, and especially as the leader, you'll become the chief repeating officer of your core values. You know,
Yeah,
we got CEO and we got these different titles, COO, but you are I guess that would be CRO, the chief repeating officer. Repeat those core values over and over and over again. Put them on the walls, but them being on the walls and in your handbook isn't enough. When you're talking to your leaders and your staff, they need to hear you using those core values in your language, and it will eventually start to trip. It's just like with your child. When you use a certain word over and over and over again, they start to pick up on it, and then it'll be a part of their vocabulary. And that's what we've done, and it's really worked for our culture.
I love that. And I think you're right. I think that core values especially are something that are lived. It's not something you just put on a document and give to people, or it's not something you just make a plaque on the wall about. You do have to constantly repeat them and live them out, I think is the only
Yes.
real good way. I'm going to bring up a subject here. You're ready
Okay.
for this one?
Okay.
Pay, right?
Oh yeah.
Everybody wants to make an issue out of pay. Everybody wants to say, um, pay is what it's about. Pay is the issue. And I'm going to soapbox here for just 1 minute and then I'll jump down.
Have
But
at it.
for me, everything in childcare comes down to enrollment, right? If you don't feel like you can't pay your staff enough, are you properly enrolled? If you don't think you can put good materials in the classroom, are you properly enrolled? You've got to have enrollment in order to support quality care. in order to support teachers, in order to support materials, in order to support the quality that you want to deliver, you've got to be enrolled. That's my soapbox. We're not going to talk about that today. Today, we're talking though about the staff piece and, about a lot of people saying, well, we can't keep people because we don't pay enough.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is it's not true because from my experience, I mean, honestly, we don't pay top dollar in our area, but people love working for us because of our culture, because of our leadership, because once they come in, they know that their leaders are going to protect them. They're going to be honest with them. They're going to be open with them. They're going to be transparent with them. And I'm also like today, we had two new hires start. They had amazing first week. I hand wrote them a note about how great their first week went, and I got them both a gas card.
Hmm.
Like just simple, small things that most people aren't doing, but it meant the world to them. They had an amazing first week, but it wasn't about pay. It's about knowing this company really cares about me. And there's so many other ways that you can compensate outside of just the dollar.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then once it's okay to work towards, that dollar amount, but also educating your staff on, like what you said, Lisa, enrollment is everything. Enrollment solves everything, you know. It
True.
does because, and then bring them in on it. Don't keep it a secret. Bring them in on it and how we can collab and contribute to get more enrollment. So I want to pay you more. And if you make that clear as well, it's not that I'm running from you or I don't want you to have more money. I want you to make more money. I want to pay you more, but all this ties back to enrollment. So let's come up with a plan to have our classroom structured and look in a certain way. Make sure that there's learning going on in the classroom and how to do tours. Train your staff on how to do tours, what they should be doing. Bring them in to contribute to building your enrollment so that you can get to that dollar amount.
Yeah.
But
Two
just
things.
pushing out higher salaries is not your solution because what you'll have is a crazy payroll and you're still dealing with the same issues in your school.
You said earlier that you don't pay the top amount in your area. How do
Mhm.
you pay the top amount? Are you
We secret shop around our areas of what staff are paying. I mean, you can go on Indeed and see what people are paying their staff at different locations. We've even had staff that come over from other areas that were making higher money there and take less money to come work and be a part of our culture. So that's a couple things of how we know.
I think you also made a really great point with your gas card. And it's just appreciation, right?
Right.
Appreciation of the little things, appreciation of, hey, I like how you supported your teammate, appreciation of, hey, I like how you saw the garbage on the playground and picked that up and took care of that to make sure we have a great thing going on here. All of that is so important. Another point that you made, you just made all these amazing points, is about the onboarding, right? The
Yes.
onboarding cannot be, well, you know what you're doing, go sit in a classroom, because that doesn't help them understand your culture. And that doesn't help them understand the benefit of working with you as an employer versus being another person in childcare. I think many people sort of overlook that value and importance of those very first few days that sets
Yes.
the tone, right?
And no matter what their experience is, if you have 20 years of experience, you don't have 20 years of experience working at my school and my culture, which is different than everyone else's. So, as a leader, never assume that they know, never assume that I rather over explain, over make sure that you understand than to assume that you do and fall short in that area. Because something that we also do in our schools, we have a 90-day onboarding plan. So from day one, when you come in, we know what we're doing from week one to week two, the second week to the third week, the fourth week, all the way for their 90 days to make sure, because we tried it the other way. And we used to be in that spot in our business where we would bring teachers in and they're right in the classroom. And it comes a point in time where this is not working. It doesn't work. I listen to other people tell me that that's not going to work. And I'm like, yeah, but our school is different. They can come here. No, it doesn't work. You need a 90-day onboarding plan, some type of onboarding plan, even if it's not 90 days, something that you can be consistent with over time to onboard your staff right. It's the foundation for everything because they come, you don't onboard them right, and then 3, 4 weeks in, you start to see issues in them. And now you start trying to chase the tail, and you're always going to be behind and be late. Versus from the very get-go, training them, establish that good foundation with your school. Now you're able to build on them. Or they leave. Onboarding solves a lot of issues for you because before you get 90 days in, you'll find out 10 days in just because you have an onboarding plan and your teacher just isn't tucked away in the classroom and you really don't see what she's doing or what's going on. You can identify those issues much earlier through having a onboarding plan. So that's something that has worked for us tremendously, and it's something we're going to keep doing, sticking with.
I think the other thing about onboarding that people sometimes forget, it's the same thing we were just talking about with appreciation, those little things. Like, don't forget not just to onboard somebody, but don't forget to orient them, show them, hey, here's the restroom. Hey, here's where we do lunch. Hey, here, if you run out of red construction paper, this is the place you go. Because otherwise there's those little things that make them anxious. And then they've got another teacher ask, and the other teacher's, busy with their day as well. So I think in addition to onboarding, that day one orientation, here's where I am, here's the things that I need to do, is really important and sometimes does get overlooked.
Yes, yes. And it makes a person just feel less stress and welcomed to your school. Like you have to put yourself in their shoes for a moment and see, okay, how would you feel if you just walked to a place you really didn't know? You was put in a class with 10 2-year-olds. This one's got snot. This one needs, this one's screaming. This one needs, put yourself in their shoes for a moment versus someone that's going side by side with you. Hey, here's our bathroom. Do you have any questions? Anything I can help with? Not putting them in a class the whole day, even if it's just a half day, 2 hours, and coming out, sitting in your office, asking more questions. You would just feel much more welcomed to the environment and be more successful.
Yeah. Two other things that I'm thinking about here as we're talking kind of on this subject of things that can affect how people feel about their pay, right? Because people are going to feel like they're not paid enough when they don't feel valued. That's when they start having that internal conversation. And I think sometimes another thing that we tend to do here in childcare is overlook the new guys, right? We have an entire generation of people who are coming into childcare right now. They probably heard at some point, don't do that. You're not going to get paid enough. It's not what you think it is. And so we really need to nurture these new people. And I think one of the things that we really want to be careful about is helping them understand the things that we know because we've been around for a while. At least I have. And that's things like professional development. Right? How many brand new people come to you and know that they have to have X hours of professional development just to stay in their position? They might not even know that. So really including some of that, but the professional development piece not only keeps your staff aware, keeps you in having a great quality program, but things change. Many, many years ago, we weren't having professional development and training around back to sleep. And look at the difference that has made, the impact that has had. And so really taking those people who are newer to the profession and helping them understand the requirements before they've been here for 10 months. And you're like, why don't you have your professional development hours done for this year? And they're like, what do you mean? And I've got 2 months then to do all of my professional development hours. There's been a lot of research out there. A lot of people have talked about how participating in professional development as an employer is very, very important and shows value to that employee. And that's something that's declining. It's something that many of our organizations have pulled back from. What are you guys doing on your side about professional development?
So professional development, we have our one yearly where we come together, all the schools, we bring somebody in. We close the school for a few days, and this is I don't have a measurement of specifically a statistic of how much it's helped us, but you can just feel and see when teachers, when they come together, like, oh, you work at this Logan's Treehouse, you work at this Logan's Treehouse. Like it just builds camaraderie amongst the whole organization. And then for everybody to sit down and learn and even see us as owners in the room, me and my wife, doing games and learning and teaching, you know, it builds a sense of team, builds a sense of connection. And like you said, it really helps the newbies. You have your older staff who, oh, I know this stuff, but you always need to sharpen those wheels over again. You never grow out of that. And the newbies, they come in and they learn a lot from professionals or whatever we're teaching in our PD days. And it really makes them feel a part and feel like a professional, you know, because we have professional expectations. So we have to treat our staff like they are professionals. Professionals go and learn. They get developed, they get coached, they just get thrown into the job and hope that they figure it out. And us as leaders, we have to, I love what John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. So if my team isn't learning, if my team isn't being developed, if my team isn't being coached, if my team isn't meeting expectations, whose fault is that?
Mhm. Powerful. Molly, we are at time, and Solomon and I were speaking so much we didn't leave time for questions and answers.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
sorry. I know. Look, it's like, wait, we're out of time. What's going on?
I know this one went quick. I'd like to thank you both so much for your time and thank you everyone for being here today. Please sign up for our next session. We have one more session next Friday, the last one of our Friday summer series. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a lovely weekend. And we'll see you on the next one, hopefully.